In the last 2 days, Trump has twice called India-US trade a one-sided disaster. First, on Truth Social after he woke up to his friend Modi being all pally with his enemy China. Again, on September 2nd, he said that he has no plans to cut tariffs on India. He said that trade relationship is one-sided and India imposes such high taxes on US goods that they cannot even compete in the Indian market. He even cited an example of Harley-Davidson motorcycles, saying that India has heavily tariffed them and so the market is closed. Listen in.
No, we get along with India very well, but India has, you have to understand, for many years, it was a one-sided relationship. Only now, since I came along, and because of the power that we have with tariffs, India was charging us tremendous tariffs, about the highest in the world. They were about the highest in the world, number one. And we therefore weren't doing much business with India, but they were doing business with us because we weren't charging them. Foolishly, we weren't charging them. So they would send in massive, everything they made, they'd send it in, pour it into our country. Therefore, it wouldn't be made here, which is a negative. But we would not send in anything because they were charging us 100% tariffs. And, I'll give you an example. Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson couldn't sell into India. There was a 200% tariff on a motorcycle. So what happens? Harley-Davidson went to India and built a motorcycle plant. And now they don't have to pay tariffs. Same thing as us.
Earlier, Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro called India the Maharaja of Tariffs and even accused India of profiteering from Russia-Ukraine war, calling it Modi's war. So now let's bust all these claims and then bring in the real reason for why India is being singled out. First, let's talk about the trade deficit. India's trade deficit with US is not even in top 5 of nations having high trade gap with America. Trump claims that India does practically nothing for the US. So let's bust this myth. As per the 2024 data by the US government, US recorded a record $1.2 trillion goods trade deficit. But India is not even the main contributor. China leads with $295 billion trade deficit. Second comes Mexico with $172 billion. Vietnam at $124 billion. Ireland at $87 billion. Germany at $85 billion, Taiwan at $74 billion, Japan at $69 billion, South Korea at $66 billion, Canada at $63 billion, and India ranks 10th at $46 billion. And what about tariffs on these nations? Well, China's tariffs are on hold for 90 days. Till then, it is at 30%, Mexico at 25% and a 90-day suspension, Vietnam at 20%, Ireland at 15%, Germany at 15%, Taiwan at 20%, Japan at 15%, South Korea at 15%, Canada at 35%, and India at 50%. So it looks like tariffs have nothing to do with trade deficit. And if Trump understands a little bit of economics, he should know that US is silently raking in billions from New Delhi. As per an analysis by GTRI, US actually is at a $35 to $40 billion surplus with India when certain revenue streams are actually counted. It says that non-merchandise income is not calculated in standard trade calculation comprising of education, digital services, financial and consulting operations, intellectual property licensing, arms deals, and even entertainment. As per estimates, US takes between $80 to $85 billion each year from India through other revenue channels. For example, Indian students studying abroad spend over $25 billion annually in US. US digital giants reportedly generate $15 to $20 billion in India revenues. Consulting and financing services in India by US firms earn $10 to $15 billion annually. Pharma firms gross around $1.5 to $2 billion every year via licensing and royalties and tech transfer. US auto firms make between $800 million to $1.2 billion through services and deals with Indian players. American streaming firms like Netflix and Amazon Prime and more, estimated to earn $1 to $1.5 billion annually from India. GCCs operated by American multinationals generate $15 to $20 billion from India-based operations, and others too are not considered under this trade deficit that Trump is talking about. Now let's talk about India being the Maharaja of Tariffs. Again, putting the facts straight here, India's tariffs are much lower than countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and even the EU. As per reports, India's weighted tariff stands at 4.6%, lower than EU's 5%, Vietnam's 5.1%, Indonesia's 5.7%, and Bangladesh's 10.6% for that matter. Now, weighted tariff is the average tax on imported goods, but it gives more importance to goods that are imported in higher quantities. Moreover, about 45% of all US exports face tariffs as low as 5 to 10% in India. So that's the reason why economists who actually know how trade and tariffs work have said that these tariffs on India make absolutely no sense. But as for Trump, we understand his part because he understands economics more than economics. Let me tell you why. As per a New York Times report, Donald Trump called Modi several times for Nobel Prize nomination and to accept that US mediated the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. But he refused because the deal was apparently talked out between the two countries by themselves. That could have hurt his ego. Then, as per Jake Sullivan, the former national security advisor of US, Trump's might be sacrificing his relations with India because of his family deals with Pakistan. That's what he said. So now what is India doing in this case? Trump says that he will not reduce the tariffs. India says that it is still in talks with the US and a deal might be concluded by November, but it is also diversifying trade. Last week, Prime Minister Modi visited China for the SCO summit. This was a clear message to Washington. The New Delhi has more options and clearly that hurt the president. The SCO summit was a proof that India-Russia relations will not loosen up despite Trump's warnings. In fact, reports suggest that Russian crude is getting even more cheaper for India and India is in talks to purchase more S-400s from Russia as US pushes India to stop trading with Moscow. India is also meeting with other nations for diversifying trade. Pharma exports have already started shifting to Australia. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal met South African and Qatari counterparts to discuss trade. New trade agreements with the countries like EU, Chile, Peru, New Zealand and Australia and Oman are also being in talks is what Goyal has said. So if nothing else, Trump's tariffs are making India's relations with other nations stronger. So for Trump, he needs to understand that when you bully all of your friends, it's not them who are getting isolated. You are the one who gets isolated while others are strengthening their relations. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments and like, share and subscribe to ET Now for more such news and views.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.